Hello, hello. Hello, hello out there. Whether you're watching me on LinkedIn, bonjour, hello, or on my English teacher YouTube channel, it's nice to have you here. I hope that you're having a wonderful Wednesday. It's 12 noon right now where I am, and I live in the Elliott Lake city of Elliott Lake. It's a very small city. Um, I would say west of Sudbury, right in the province of Ontario. So it's good to see you here today. Welcome to my live. I've been doing these lives, these specific type of lives for about 3-4 weeks now. And they're basically to help you learn English, right? Help you learn new phrases in English. Because I am an English teacher. My name is English teacher Linda G. And I'm also known as the Back in the Groove Again coach. And as a coach, I specialize in helping women reclaim their confidence, reclaim their confidence in life, in traveling, and of course, in English conversations. So if this is your first time joining me on my lives, please do say hello. I always love knowing where you're watching me from and who is watching me, right? So I've been teaching English as a foreign language now for many years. Actually, I started in 2018. And I've been a coach for many years as well, even longer than 2018. And my students are from various parts of the world, Brazil and China and Japan and Turkey and Saudi Arabia. I even have some students that live in Canada and of course in the United States as well. And my clients come from there as well. But today we're focusing on English to help you improve your English speaking skills. And we're continuing the July theme, which is about something that we all deal with. And sometimes we may have to do it in business. And of course, sometimes we may have to do it personally as well. So whether you're negotiating a deadline, or maybe you're trying to get your colleague on board with your idea, or maybe you're trying to persuade your boss to give you a raise, these phrases will really help you. I'm just looking to see if anybody is chatting. All right, let me go back to my lesson here. So these phrases are going to be very helpful because I'm going to be sharing with you some natural and professional English phrases that you can use in negotiations. Plus, I'll be sharing some phrasal verbs and some idioms that will help you to sound more fluent and more confident. All right, let's get started. So here are a few solid phrases that are polite and assertive and that will help keep the conversation flowing professionally. So here's one. Would you be open to discussing blah, blah, blah? Would you be open? You can even say, would you be open to having a discussion about this, right? Would you be open to discussing this? Or here's another example. I'd like to propose an alternative. I'd like to propose an alternative. Or what if we looked at it from a different perspective? What if we looked at it this way instead of this way? Or from my perspective, this could be more efficient. Or can we explore another option here? And notice my tone, right? Notice my tone. I didn't say, can we explore another option here? I said, can we explore another option here? And I hope that sounds like it's polite, like it's inviting, right? Because tone matters. Tone matters. So these expressions are the kind of expressions that show respect while also clearly stating your position. And of course, tone matters. It matters. It's how you say things, it's the tone you use while you're saying things. So here are a few other expressions. Can we explore another option here? That can sound curious and collaborative, or it could sound passive aggressive. Can we explore another option here? It doesn't sound the same. So you want to keep your voice neutral, polite, and open. Think calm. You want to be calm, but also very clear, right? So let's talk now about phrasal verbs. And of course, I want you to practice these sentences. So whether it's the last few phrases that I shared or the next few that I'll be sharing with you now, I want you to practice them, right? I want you to write them down, maybe listen to the replay again and again and again, and start practicing them. Now, you can practice them with me, of course, because I am your teacher, or you can practice them with friends, or when you're really brave, you can practice them at work. All right, let's keep going. We're going to talk about phrasal verbs now. So phrasal verbs are very common. So are idioms, very, very common. They're short expressions that we, native speakers, love to use. And of course, they can make your English sound way more fluent. Now, just to explain a little bit what a phrasal verb is, because I know it's very confusing. A phrasal verb is made up of a main verb, like take or get or run or look, and one or more particles, which could be an adverb, like up or down or away or back, or prepositions. We talked about that last week. On or in or over or to. These are just examples. So here are three phrasal verbs that you could start using. And the first one is bring up. Bring up. Bring is the verb, right? And up is the preposition. So bring up means to introduce a topic, introduce something. So let's bring up the delivery timeline at the end of the call, right? So let's talk about the delivery timeline at the end of the call, but you can simply use bring up. And of course, native speakers know what that means. Here's another one for you. Back down, back down. Now I have to say that I am using one definition of these phrasal verbs because there are other definitions of phrasal verbs. Right now, I'm using them in the context of negotiations and persuasions. All right, you have to keep that in mind. Back down means to stop insisting on something, often after a bit of pressure. So, for example, she refused at first, but finally backed down when the manager pushed back. Pushed back. That is another phrasal verb, right? When the manager pushed back. So he didn't push back. No, that's not what that means. It gently means that when the manager stopped insisting, right? Stopped insisting when he pushed back. Oh, wait. Let me rephrase that. Let me read my sentence. She refused at first, but finally backed down when the manager pushed back. So in this case, it means when he was pushing a little bit more, right? He was engaging a little bit more. He was insisting a little bit more. And she finally said, okay, all right, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing to this. So that, see, pushback does mean different things. So back down means to stop insisting on something. So she refused at first, but finally stopped insisting on something, stopped saying, okay, no, we need to do this, we need to do that. She stopped insisting on something when the manager pushed back. Now, another phrasal verb is talk over. Talk over. Now, that also has different meanings. And this one means to discuss something thoroughly. So, to thoroughly discuss something. In other words, here's an example. We should talk it over before making a decision. Talk over is the phrasal verb, and it's one of these separable phrasal verbs, right? We can put a pronoun in between the talk, the verb, and the preposition. And this one means to discuss something thoroughly, talk over. So we should talk it over before making a decision. Now, these are casual phrasal verbs, right? Because you can use them in personal settings too. And they're very professional as well, because you can use them in professional settings. And they're very natural, right? This is how we speak. This is the words we use. So now let's talk about business idioms, right? We'll share 3 business idioms today. And you probably have heard them at meetings or interviews or negotiations. First one, get the ball rolling. Get the ball rolling. This means to start something, right? We need to get the ball rolling on this new proposal. Or if the meeting has not started yet and the chairperson is saying, okay, let's get the ball rolling. That means let's start this meeting. Here's another business idiom for you. We're in the same boat, And this means that 2 or more people share the same issues, share the same problem. For example, we're all in the same boat. Everyone's under pressure to perform, right? We're all in the same boat here. We're all experiencing the same pressure. We're all in the same boat, And the third one, and I know I've shared this umpteen times before, but you're going to hear it again. And it's think outside the box. And that just means to be creative, to be unconventional, right? To not think like we're in a square box. You have to think outside of that box. So here's a great example for you. If we want to cut costs, we have to think outside the box, right? We have to be creative in trying to think of ways that we can cut costs, because perhaps we don't want to lay off people, for example. So these are really interesting idioms, and I would like you to practice them. Now you can use these in your speech, to sound more confident when you speak English. So let's quickly review now some modal verbs, a little bit of grammar here that you can use when you're negotiating politely. And modal verbs are used quite often. Like could, for example, could we try a different approach? Could. Or would you consider extending the deadline? So would. And may is another phrasal verb. May I offer another perspective? Now these really soften the language, right? They're not arrogant, they're more polite. And being polite is really essential when it comes to persuading people in professional settings. You need to be polite, especially in Canada, in the United States too, I'm sure. Now, you might also consider adding some time phrases to be extra clear. So for example, these are all time phrases, and I want you to think of how you can use them. Here's one. By the end of next week. By the end of next week. So if your work week is from Monday to Friday, by the end of next week would be, let's say today is Wednesday, and if I say by the end of next week, it would be the following week on the Friday, by the end of Friday, which would be, let's say 30th, probably August something. I can't remember what date are we. I don't have my calendar. Let's see. By the end of next week would be, I'm looking at my second screen. If I say by the end of next week, it would be August 1st. That's when it would be, by the end of next week. As soon as possible. Now, as soon as possible, this one can be very tricky. You might have heard of ASAP, ASAP, ASAP. I need this ASAP. That means as soon as possible. So it's tricky because that could mean by this afternoon, right? By 4 o'clock today. It could mean within the next hour. I need it now, in other words, but as soon as possible. And generally, it does not mean by the end of next week. So, if you may need to negotiate this, because if you can't submit the proposal as soon as possible, which could be tomorrow, for example, you may need to know the deadline. When can I submit this? I'd like to negotiate our time frame here. I know that I can't submit it today, but I can probably submit it by Friday. Would that work for you? So you can see how, using these time phrases are it's very, very helpful, right? Could you define what as soon as possible means? Because you need to know, in my opinion, how quick this person wants you to submit this proposal, for example. All right. I hope that's clear. Because as soon as possible generally means like fairly quickly, but that's not very clear. So you might have to ask, could you tell me what as soon as possible means? You want it by the end of the day, for example, or by the end of the week? What would work for you? All right, here's another one. No later than Thursday. All right, no later than Thursday. So if he says as soon as possible and you're asking him, could you be more specific, please? And maybe he says, well, I want it no later than Thursday. Now, in Canada, some of us work till 4, some of us work till 5, some of us work till 7, right? So it depends on the time you finish work. Generally, no later than Thursday, it means that Thursday morning, it should be in the mail, it should be in the email, right? Because you want to submit it probably Wednesday, not later than Thursday. So Friday, right? That wouldn't be good. So no later than Thursday. Again, here, you might need to negotiate the time. Would 4 o'clock be fine with you? Because no later than Thursday. Some people might mean no later than noon on Thursday. Might need to be more specific in some cases. That way you know exactly what that means. So there's communication skills. Sometimes you need to use your communication skills. You need to ask questions so that they are more specific. And that way you know exactly what time they want this submitted by. Within the next 48 hours. So if I'm looking at my calendar here, today is Wednesday, the 23rd, right? So within 48 hours, that means Friday at the latest. And that means you could submit it later today, or you could submit it tomorrow, but it has to be within that 48-hour period, which is generally 2 days, right? 48 hours, 2 days. So when you use these phrases, It helps you to be diplomatic and precise, but sometimes you might need to be more precise, especially when it comes to wording such as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Again, I know I'm repeating myself here, but it means fairly quickly. But it could mean no later than tomorrow if the person is okay with that. So you might need to, ask for more precision in some cases. I hope that makes sense to you. And of course, if you have questions, please do let me know and write them in the chat box, right? Very useful, very important, I should say, too. So the key to effective negotiation, English, you say, not just the words you use, it's how, the tone that you use. You want to use polite language, you want to stay calm. And of course, you want to support your ideas with clear reasons. And start using these phrases and these phrasal verbs and idioms in your emails, for example, during meetings, and even during casual conversations with your coworkers, because you will need to use some of these phrases sometimes with your coworkers too, and it'll make a huge difference. So thank you for watching me today. Thank you for being here. I know that somebody was watching me. I'm not sure where you're from, and you can add it in the chat box if you'd like, if you feel comfortable in doing so. Where are you watching me from today? I see it's somebody on my English teaching channel. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Where are you from? Where are you watching from? It's always good to see people live. All right. Thank you again for being here today. And of course, for more tips, please download my practice tip sheet on my website at speakenglishwithconfidencenow.com. You could also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Feel free to share my videos with your friends, with your colleagues, especially if they also need to practice English. And I am a teacher, right? So if you need a teacher, go to my website and get more information there. All right. Bye for now. Have a great day. I will see you next week. And next week is the 30th. I'm looking at my calendar here. So that means that it will be the last day of the month. And of course, I'll also be talking about negotiation and persuasion next week. And then we'll start with a new theme the following month. All right, everybody, have a great day. And if you're watching on replay, please write down where you're watching from. And also the challenge is to use these sentences, right? That's why I'm teaching. I want you to practice using these sentences. So if you've used them, write it down in the comments section. I've used the phrasal verb today, and I think that would be great, right? If you want to practice them, write them down in the comments section and write down maybe a sentence using them. You can do that as well. All right, that's it. C'est tout pour aujourd'hui. That's it for today.